Ready when you want. Welcome, everybody. Today is Monday, October 23rd, 2023, and this on the Preston Board of Trustees meeting is being held both in person and via Zoom. The time is 2:01, and in order to complete the town's business in a timely manner, the following procedures will be followed for all town meetings, including those hosted on Zoom. All meeting participants must keep their microphones muted and their videos turned off except during citizens' comments and unless called on to speak by the board. Per the Town of Crestone Board of Trustees, the Procedures and Rules of Order, Section 7.3. We allow 15 minutes for citizens' comments. And during those 15 minutes, speakers will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, after which they will be informed that their 3 minutes are up and their microphones will be muted. Before speaking, please state your name and address for the record. If you have comments that are longer than 3 minutes, or if the time for citizens' comments expired before you had a chance to speak, please send up your comments as correspondence to Town Hall and the board will respond to your letters. We will take citizens' comments, as I said before, for up to 15 minutes per our procedures. If meetings, multiple citizens have the same comments to make, please be brief. Should the time allotted for citizens' comments expire before you have a chance to speak, you may submit your comments to Town Hall to be included as correspondence to the board at their next regular meeting. Scott, would you keep track of the time, please?
Yes.
For citizens' comments. And would you call the roll?
Mayor Danforth,
Here.
Trustee Martinez, here. Trustee Lakai,
Here.
Trustee Kinney,
Here.
Trustee Byer, Trustee Pazlowski.
Wait.
Yep. Also present is interim town administrator Scott Ayersman. Attorney Seth Walker will be popping in and off of Zoom as we go. He's got a few other things that he's doing right now, but he also wants to pop in.
Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda. We approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion?
Is Seth wanting to talk about one of these two things on the agenda?
Oh, he wanted to be available to talk, to answer questions about the letter from Preston Fire Department.
All right.
But he's relayed to me what his thoughts were on it, and I can, when we get there, I can, if he's not on, I can relay to you guys what he had to say about it.
Okay.
All the questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Agenda is approved. Next item is citizens' comments. Are there any citizens? All right. So citizens' comments, Warren, I think.
Warren Stephen, 271 West Carbonate. After the last meeting where the auditor presented his audit for the town for the year 2022, I wrote him a letter. Dear Mr. Merriman, I am sorry I was so rude during the town of Prestone audit presentation. We have been told repeatedly by the board and treasurer that you are a forensic accountant. I now understand that you are not hired to do a forensic accounting of the town's books. Over the last year, a group of citizens has tried to help the board correct the budget. The attached pages indicate just the tip of the iceberg of financial problems facing the town. We have contacted the district attorney, the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA Budget Office, State Auditor, Attorney General, and State's Ethics Boards, all of which have no interest in the problem. We have thought that finally an accountant would see the magnitude of the problem. 4 years of not submitting supplemental budgets, multi-year contracts, no big contracts, unappropriated spending, and conflict of interest. The town attorney has been advised repeatedly that the board is in violation of Article 29-1-115 included in the packet, and has done nothing to direct the board to correct the violations. There have been 6 newspaper articles between the Crestone Eagle and the Alamosa Courier covering the developing story. I hope that your fresh, objective eyes will shed light on the problem. That's part 1. 2 is, I object to the process that you're going through. I find it sleazy that you're doing this in a special meeting, not having a public hearing about the sign. Thanks. Dark Skies Arch, I assume that's what we're doing.
Are there any other citizens affected one? Are there any other, Michelle, would you come up?
The microphone's on, John.
Hey, don't worry about the mic.
Okay, Michelle Beelander Fire, 433 North Hemlock.
Speak up, would you please?
Michelle Beelander Fire, 433 North Hemlock. I first off want to say that I support our community, our town as a whole. And over time, the last 2 years, it's been really difficult to see what the town's going through and the controversies and the issues that are happening. Two things that I'm concerned about that I'd like to mention. One is the dark sky sign. I'm concerned that the process that is being unfolded is not in accordance to like town policy. I talked to the town interim administrator. I'm concerned that there has not been 3 bids on the work. I'm concerned that the board, this has not been brought to the board. The sign, the grants, anything. It's like a last minute push. And because of how the board has been under the scrutiny for self-interest, for conflict of interest, I personally think that this has to be looked at, because the way it's being handled, it does not look good for the board to progress with this sign without doing everything exactly as it needs to be done. So I kind of agree with Warren that and I'm not saying any words that are negative, but I will say this has not been, from my investigation, is not being handled the way it should be that's a big deal. The other thing I just want to bring up really briefly, it's completely separate, is I received a letter this morning from Nick Navarros, who's really concerned about the board mixing the music, the last board meeting, there seemed to be a lot of, I guess, negativity, some feedback with performances, sound ordinances. And I'm just really curious why the board approved a stage in town without going through a process with the community, with the board, with everybody involved, to be really clear why you approved a stage, what's going to happen with sound ordinance, and moving forward of what's going to happen with our events. And it just needs to be cleared up. It's been ongoing. It creates a lot of dis-ease with the community and its members. So these 2 things I think need to be handled in a really clear, concise, legal appropriate way. So, but going back, please do not approve this sign until you go through 3 bids that are sent out, that are brought back to the board, and do this in the appropriate manner, and don't push it through without doing things correctly. That's my request as a community member.
Thank Thank you. Anything else?
Oh, there was an item of correspondence, technically we don't have a section for it, but it was specifically about, it was specifically relevant to this
We
meeting.
we don't have correspondence on our agenda.
There is not, but it was, since it was relevant to the meeting, I thought I would stick it in the packet and I could read it aloud during citizen comment. This is from Wendy Chandon, Crestone resident at 154 North Cottonwood Street. Email she sent was, a rumor is going around that a large dark sky sign is being planned for the entrance of Crestone. This is my voice of opposition if this rumor is true. A small tasteful sign would be appropriate, but to install anything more is not necessary. Not necessary or wanted by town residents that I have spoken to. I think this dark skies push has been the agenda of one person. I object to our town spending even $1 on pumping up anyone's ego. It is long past time for some common sense around here, and there's a big need for change in how this town is guided. Listening to your constituents should be your priority now. We need some restored faith. Still hoping. Wendy Chandon.
May I begin?
Please.
I'm wearing my dark skies regalia because I think dark skies are cool. They were beautiful last night. However, I am opposed to the sign. For several reasons. Number one, we do not have an IGA with the county road and bridge. We pay them a major portion of our HUD funds for them to maintain our roads, and yet we pay over $2,000 every 3 months on a not itemized statement, which I also complained about twice. We're not getting itemized statements from them. This sign is proposed to be on the outside of the town boundary. So therefore, they are going to be responsible to maintain it. We can't even get them to gravel our roads. Do you think they're gonna maintain our sign if somebody drives into it or vandalism to it? No, I don't believe so. It takes away from the sign on our boundary that welcome to Crestone. It's also large, humongous, but being in the county, are they providing insurance? Who's gonna maintain it? Does that mean our public works people that are being paid to do our jobs? Okay, that we complain that we're paying too much. Are they gonna go outside the town and maintain that sign to mow around it? Then there's a proposal in here about something about lighting. Is it solar lighting? Or do we have to run a power line? An underground power source to it? I am totally opposed to it. I think it takes away from the town itself, unless it was a town sign, specifically just welcome to Crestone sign. And this bid I saw on my phone, it looks like chicken scratches.
What?
And it goes over the budget that we were apparently granted. There was awards, 5,000 was one grant, another 5,000 was another grant. They're under the limit, they have to spend it within this year. Well, it's already in excess by, it's only $120, but as Wendy stated, I refuse to spend $1.
So may I say something?
Okay, I think I've said enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
this sign, sometimes things work out for the best. And I think that's the case in this case. The big sign, it didn't happen. It mostly didn't happen because county changed their mind about the location. We would call and have 811 come. And the first time they came pretty promptly, the second time it was slower, and the third time it dragged on out. So as time went by, the momentum got lost and it
So you're
eventually
talking about the sign that would go over the road.
yeah. So it was time to rethink things. And this is where we are. Almost everything you've heard as an objection does not exist at this point in time. We got bids, the lowest, we shrank the sign so that it's 7 feet high and 8 feet wide. It's the same design, so that we eliminated any charge for another, any design, and the dark sky committee. Michelle, since I last talked to you, everything changed, so the price came down. So now the price came down to 13,000. Yes, you're absolutely right, that we only had 10. In no way did I ever intend to ask the board or the town to spend money on this sign. I personally went out and gathered some more donations. Joyful Journey, I got $1,500 donation from Joyful Journey. I've already put their first check in the bank, given it to Scott, and the second one we're gonna get very shortly. I got $1,500 from the Saguache County Tourism, and the total cost to the town for installing this sign would be to place a 10-foot culvert for drainage, just to make sure that, in case there's a little ditch, if that ever runs, particularly in the spring, we'll have the culvert, and to ask the town for enough road base to cover the culvert. And I did talk to Scott, he didn't seem to think that that was a problem. I absolutely agree with you. I never liked having the sign outside of town. And the dark sky committee met. And if you see this sign, you see there's a street that was never opened. This is a street that was never opened. Well, as a matter of fact, the objections that I've heard so far today are minor compared to what I heard when we were gonna put the sign, the last place that the county approved. That was gonna cause some serious, discontent and more. So where the sign is going to be now, with the board, if the board so agrees, it's gonna be at the very periphery of where the street, was not open, so it's just blank ground. And it'll be clear on the edge, so that if the street is ever open, it wouldn't matter. The town will finally be where it always needed to be. I couldn't agree with you more, Kim. The town will be in town, maintained by the town, and incidentally, since it's almost all stone, the maintenance would be, not as much. Should be, absolutely.
And what was that,
But it'll be
$1,300 for rocks we have to pay?
That's the biggest expense, it's not rocks, it's.
Well, it says it on that bid.
It's telluride tile, and it's beautiful, and that's $3,500. It's the major cost for the whole time, that are that, and it's beautiful, I mean, nobody in
It's
the past.
beautiful, but I don't think it
The
belongs
hem
here.
scratching, there was just the first, there was the estimate that we cut back when we met last week, since I talked to you, Michelle. Cut back, eliminated some of the costs.
Well, Telluride rocks need to be in Telluride, Crestone rocks need to be in Crestone, and they're free. How much did your best cost?
These rocks, there's technical details of having this, the way it is. It will look well, it will. This is slanted slightly. And it simply says, welcome to Crestone. It's not gonna say historic Crestone. Welcome to Crestone, an international dark sky community. If we fail to do this sign, this certification is effective only 12 months at a time. Every year we have to recertify. We are required, and have been told this repeatedly, to have this sign, which is something that's to reflect our community, and that we're proud of being a dark sky community. If we don't have this up by year end, we will not be recertified next year. I have worked for a long time. I think this is. Go ahead, Adam.
I commend all of the work you've done to establish us as an international dark sky community, and I think it's a great benefit to the town and the community. I'm not comfortable with the process and the community feedback on how we're going about doing this, but hold
So
on.
how are you not
So-
satisfied with the process?
I think we need more time, more public input, and bids. And then, but I guess I'm curious, if we were to take a piece of wood and carve or paint an international dark sky community, can we not hang that under the existing sign and meet the certification requirements?
It was the intent always, and you would have been included as a potential bidder.
Oh, I'm not interested in bidding it.
But we ran out of time, and so now it will simply, there won't be any carving, all that expense came
No,
out.
no, no, if we had a piece of wood that Gretchen could do and paint it or carve it and hang it under our existing sign, would that meet the certification requirements?
So from my perspective, for whatever it's worth, we have grants that we got in good, they gave us in good faith, we applied for them in good faith, and we have $10,000 of grants. I've had, Friday, there was a memorandum from the Council of Governments, and it was through Dole, and Stola money. And they said that we have never recognized what they've given us, and they were hoping that we would recognize them on this sign. And as far as, if we don't, at this juncture, if we give back the money, that's not only gonna reflect very poorly on Crestone, it's gonna reflect very poorly on this COG mini grant, because that means that'll get lost. There's not enough time now for them to go out and spend the money.
But that's
And so
our
this is the
response.
money that's given to us in good faith. We applied in good faith. We've shrunk everything down. We need to do this. If this, we have the,
So we have to spend the money to get something that we don't want.
well, that is maybe if nobody wants this sign, that's fine. I don't care. I have to leave.
Oh, I just wanted to say that as far as getting the sign built, I definitely recognize the importance of staying in dark sky community, and want to meet that obligation, and I really appreciate all the legwork that Karina, you and the whole dark sky committee has put into this. As far as moving forward with this sign, since this is a construction project for $13,000, this really should be formally, there should be a formal request for proposal associated with us. And so just in terms of, like Michelle said, doing everything in just the right way, the right way to do this would be to do a formal request for proposal, and that only needs to be out for 10 days for our policy. So if you could give me really specific requirements for what the sign has to have, I could get that made. You could have your vendors respond to it, and we could be ready to make a decision at the next regular board meeting, having followed all of the proper steps. So,
And
that's really
Required to be insured,
Will be
because
what?
people submitting bids would need to know that if it's required to be insured, it's self-insured.
Mhm.
So if you write that proposal, you might wanna include that, because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't have.
And just, nobody answered the question.
So if the board doesn't want the sign, there's no point in going through another bidding process.
But I still have the question on the table. If there's a sign that Gretchen can make that hangs under the existing sign, will that meet the certification requirements?
Yes and no. Yes, we will have a sign. No, it won't look like the other dark sky community signs, because they make them very nice. The community spends a lot of money. It's a source of pride. It looks good. And I've never seen one that made like that, but yes, it would satisfy the requirement to have a sign.
Okay.
Susan,
So. Not to keep generating more controversy. I think the idea of having a nicely made addition to our welcome to Crestone sign that we have. That is made, that kind of matches the rest of the sign that goes underneath it and says an international dark sky community. Kind of fits in with the sign we have to town. I think this is a nice looking sign. I also feel like it's not how I would spend the money. And, cause it says welcome to Crestone, and all that's there is on its small letters is an international dark sky community. It's not the focus of the sign. The focus of this image is the rocks. And, we already have a welcome to Crestone sign, and I think having a nicely done addition right below it, that fits with the sign. If it meets the criteria, let's do that. And I understand what you're talking about, you know, as far as like entering a town and really having a sign. There's really been a kind of a whole push these last couple of years, I don't know, almost like a pushback amongst the citizens in town of feeling over touristed, over evented, you know, really wanting to reclaim our quiet little town and the simplicity. I think like right now, if we tried to extend our sidewalks right now, we'd have everybody in uproar. It's like people are kind of wanting to just keep it low key, and there's been a real response about having just too many people, too many cars, and too much tourism. And so I think that there needs to be a recognizing of that's where we are right now. And having a simple sign added to it that recognizes it, I think is a really good, you know, it's a nice balance of things. We get the recognition, we're not putting out a great big monolith to something. Where I would like to see information on the sign, and it sounds like it's too late for this year, but I wanna just remind everybody about this kind of proposal we had on the table of developing into a parking area, the area on Willow Street. And part of what we had talked about with that original grant would be we're making the parking nicer and having signs inside the parking area that are informational about our community. And that would be a perfect place to have, what does it mean to be a dark sky community? And have things that illustrate, you know, here's a light and this is how it should shine to the ground and rather than horizontally. And have information about what it means to be a dark sky community. And it could be informative about, you know, turn off your lights, but don't have horizontal, you know, air, light pollution. And maybe we could look, rather than having something that's, you know, a bunch of rocks with a little sign, have something that's truly informative and have information about, you know, it's an interpretive sign of why this is important. I love those roadside interpretive signs. And let's look at educating people why being a dark sky community is important, and maybe having that as a sign, rather than this. I like the little sign that we have, and I think part of what people are responding to is we just don't wanna see custom flashing lights. You know, it's like, let's just.
it's not an electrical sign, it's
I
a small
know, but
solar.
I'm speaking kind of metaphorically there.
Sign at night, it's
And
very small, it's only solar.
And if times had been different, I would say I would vote in favor of the sign. Because you know? It's like a nice entrance to the town, but I feel like we're just dealing with a community right now that just wants us to sort of quiet things, tone things down. And so let's just keep it simple. And it doesn't mean that we're gonna toss away this design, but if in the future we're looking at, we wanna do something more, put it out for bid. But I think right now, let's just have a nice addition to the sign we have made. It says an international dark sky community.
So I will say that the board looked at this sign with its larger iteration some months back and told the board, the dark sky committee, to go ahead with the sign. If this, all what we are saying about having a simple sign, not spending any money, so forth, that's not what the board said then. The board acted, the dark sky committee acted consistent with the board directed. And I have looked at every, well, not every, but I've had the Dark Sky Association send me pictures of at least most of the signs. And I never saw any that either went into great detail describing a lot of information about the town, nor have I seen any that were very just cheap, very, just a couple of boards or whatever. If they were always something that the community was proud of and had spent money on. In this case, I went to a lot of effort to try to keep the town or the town taxpayers' money from being spent at all, except to ask for a culvert. And if that was not good, I would look for money for the culvert or pay it myself. I think that there's a better than good chance that the entire mini grant COG program could end as we turn this money back to them. And I'm very serious about that because it's a very unusual program. And DOLA keeps changing things, but this is not only inappropriate. I'm getting ready to go there now for a board meeting. It's gonna make us look bad and it's gonna make COG look bad. But if you don't want the money, if you don't want the sign, I understand that. Michelle?
I think we could move on, I mean, can we
I
hear
just
from
have
Benji
a
and just?
question,
wrap
just
it up?
curiously about, just curious, two things. Is that is there a deadline to use the grant? Because it's confusing if it's just a deadline to have a dark sky sign, which seems like that's one thing. And the grant, it seems like it can be used for other things besides just the sign. And what's the deadline for using that money or making a plan for that money? Because maybe another plan can be made for the COG and for the grant monies, kind of like what Kizen was suggesting, something that for that. So it seems, which is the deadline? Seems like there's a deadline for a dark sky sign, which could be really easily mitigated by adding a sign, even if that's temporary. And that the money can be used and planned out. There's grant money for something. What's that grant? What's the grant money for?
The grant money is for the sign.
Only for the sign?
Only for the
It's not for
sign.
information or
Yes.
parking, the things that Kizen was saying?
It's for the sign.
So what I'm thinking is we can still do a sign, but we can do not just a little sign onto our town, but put the money towards have a plan where we're going to make it interpretive signs that could go into like that parking area or wherever is a good location where people could get out of their car and read
We can't
what
do
it
that,
means to
because
be
we
that.
just can't do that. We submitted a proposal.
You can't use the money
No.
for a different kind of sign?
No, we can't. It's like we submitted a proposal to DOLA for sidewalks and then decided, no, the community doesn't want, we don't want sidewalks. We, the board, don't want sidewalks, but we need a park.
Well, I'm still
We
talking,
can't do that.
I'm still talking about a sign.
You can't do that. We submitted a proposal. I've had to write reports every month for 6 months about this sign. And to go back now and say, no, we don't want a sign, we can't do that. You can't, it isn't called. That, you just don't do that with grants. You make an application, and if you get the award, you do what you said you were gonna do.
Benji, do you need to go or?
I wanna support Karina's initiative in the dark sky arena. The issue I have is just that when we were originally doing the sign, that was possibly gonna go over the road, we had a lot of other ideas that was kind of like priority, like we're still working on this, thing with the water and sanitation, we still haven't even gotten a stop sign like we wanted a stop sign over here on this intersection months ago, and we still haven't gotten a stop sign. Speed bumps, people are really concerned about so many other things. And I think the problem is it's not giving dark sky a very good reputation because so many other things are lagging behind right now. We're just not really meeting, even Warren keeps telling us that we have to do these supplemental budgets. There's priorities that are set that really need to be taken care of. So when the town sees us working on a sign, to me, it just shows that we're kind of neglecting a lot of our other obligations, which is safety and making sure this town is a safe place to walk. And so I don't wanna totally knock this down. I totally agree that we need to figure something out, but it doesn't look good for the town. I know we're trying to make it look good for the town, but who are we trying to make it look good for? Are we trying to make it look good for the guests that are coming here? Are we trying to make it good for the people who actually live here, use this town every day, walk down the street every day?
No.
I was walking across the street the other day, we were walking and a car just flew up the hill towards school. Going probably
Twice.
yeah, probably 30 or 40 miles an hour. We don't have the basics to make this town, I just don't think that this is a great how do I say it, view for the town or a good stepping stone. Yeah, I just think that we're gonna get more flack.
Okay, may I answer that? Number one, the town, the fact that we're an international dark sky community and we're rated as the 10th darkest international dark sky community in the world right now, does bring tourism dollars and will continue to if we stay certified. And I will mention a name here, although I usually wouldn't. Someone named Steve McDowell, who has consistently, since the very beginning, he hated dark skies. He told me how much he hated it. We shouldn't be doing it. And about maybe a month ago, I went in and he said, why don't you have an observatory? He said, my customers come in all the time. They want a place to go look at the signs. He said, why haven't you already done that? It isn't, in my mind, a matter of neglecting our other duties. This hasn't taken time from the board to do anything other than you had the time when we originally, the Dark Sky Committee presented it, it was approved, we were told to go ahead, and now we haven't spent the town hasn't been spending staff time, we haven't spent money, we haven't spent resources. So I don't feel.
I think this town has a little bit of a bipolar nature where on one side we have people who want the festival, they want everything to happen, they want more tourists, they want more money coming into this town, and then there's another side that doesn't want that, and it's really a big split. It's not like, and I think that the board has to really, our challenge is we have to balance that a lot. We can't fall on one side or the other too much. And the best possible way we can do that is by looking at the real priorities of this town. I know that the dark sky is a priority, but it's.
Go ahead.
There's other ways to do
I
it.
had, Kim, I had my hand up first.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what anybody wants, the real priority is that we have to do stuff by proper procedure. So this isn't by proper procedure. If we have to take bids, if we have to have insured contractors, then that's what we have to do. So let's do that. And then if we get positive feedback, great. If we get, we'll probably get positive and negative feedback and make a decision based on that. But no matter what, we would be out of integrity to decide anything today. And I will say that no matter how much work the Dark Sky Committee has done and no matter how much the board directed them 3 or 4 months ago, it was somebody's responsibility to do things by proper procedure. And if we look bad to the grantors for not having done that, then we should look bad to the grantors for not having done that.
So we
Because
haven't
we have-
spent any money, how have we violated any procedures when we haven't spent any?
We
money?
can't decide to move forward without a,
The board approved paying for a design a long time ago,
No.
that's the only money that was spent.
It was put out there, we said, hey, look into it. It was not approved that we were going to get this big thing that looked like a high chaparral gate or the entry to Auschwitz. I mean, that was never approved. A design was put out there, we looked at it, we said, that's interesting, there's little bears pointing at the North Star, I remember. And I said, Crestone means coxcomb in Spanish, where's the rooster? Everybody laughed. No, it was never a decision that was made. We just said, hey, if you got money out there, investigate it, but it was not a decision that we approved.
But it
So
was
get that
not,
one straight.
there was no money, that's correct, but we weren't out spending money. So processes, as if we went, gone out and spent money or done something, we haven't done anything except, go ahead, Warren.
You're required for anything over $5,000.
I can't hear you.
Anything over $5,000 has to go out for bid. This is $13,000. It has to be advertised. It has to go out for bid. That's the process. If you are trying to get this thing built without doing that process, you're in violation.
I agree with you.
Okay, so with all of the things that are, you're having a special meeting. You haven't done the supplemental budget for 23 and nobody's working on it.
we are working on it.
Yeah.
No one's working on it.
We are working on the supplemental budget.
You're working on the 24 budget.
I'm working on the 2023, the 2022, the 2021. People are working on things. You don't know everything.
That's right, I don't.
And you were supposed to leave at,
I know,
2:30, read that discussion, there's no decision.
I'm not quite through, I'm almost through. I'm all for Scott, and we talked about it, going out and getting bids, that's not a problem. And there's nobody that would be bidding who would not be an insured contractor, that's not a problem.
So what are we
Going
doing
out for
today?
bid is not a problem, and you're talking about the budget, this is money that's not gonna be spent by the town other than grant.
It's in your budget. If it's not in your budget, then you're in violation there too. But
We
putting
have-
that aside, why don't you put this out to the people? The people haven't seen this sign. The last sign that was discussed is the one that,
This is disruptive.
Summit was doing, right? Big arch over the thing, paid them $1,250 to do the design.
That's why I brought this, that's why I showed it to go ahead, I wanted to go ahead.
Published
It
in the
doesn't
paper.
look like it doesn't look like it's gonna go anywhere.
Okay, discussion has ensued, we.
So is there anybody who wants to go ahead with this, is there any motion to go forward with this sign? I will make a motion that we proceed, go follow the town, the appropriate process to get bids from qualified contractors for this sign. Otherwise, the town needs to officially communicate with the SOB Council of Governments that these reports that we're not going to have it signed. And I don't, at this point, I don't even care whether we put up a sign or not, because probably wouldn't get approved, so I make a motion to approve going forward with the process of legally to adopt a small version of this sign, 7 feet high, 8 feet wide, in a location that is designated will provide a very nice view for, the wood that extends over the edge so that there could be a nice little bouquet of flowers on each side of the sign. And there could be wildflowers planted in front, and it would be a source of pride, but maybe that's not what's wanted. And maybe we don't need to apply for designation next year. Yes, Michelle?
I'd like to request as a community member to like consider what Kizen said and other options. Because this, what you just put out, was just put out last week. This is not, this like sign that just came out is just something that just popped up. And there's many other things that could happen with this money. And I think if we did something like Kizen said, I think it's great, actually. It's because you can put a sign, you could put a small sign on the other sign. You could actually develop the parking and make it informational and like for the kids and people in this community. There could be something better than this sign. So why do we have to, why is it like one way only? Why can't it be, I mean, just because someone doesn't like, the board may not, or the community may not like this idea, there's some other ideas that this money could be used for that could make it a, like that whole area that you're talking about, Kizen, could be developed in part of the park. It's a really beautiful area. It could be another place for our children to go to. It could be developed instead of a sign. A sign has very little function. You could put the sign there. You could put the information up. I love that idea. I mean, I just love it. I think it's really beautiful and it could be developed as an extension of our park or parking. It could be something really good. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be just this sign, it could be something else. That's all I want to say.
And it didn't just pop up, it resulted from the county delays and delays and delays until we never got to the point of bringing anything to the board until now, and the weather is gonna close in. Yes, Adam?
Who applied for the grant, the Dark Sky Committee or the town?
What?
Who applied for the grant, the Dark Sky Committee or the town?
The town did.
So I would request that we direct Scott to look into the logistics of the grant and let us know if it can be used for informational signs and development of that or anything else.
Have you ever seen a grant that you waited until the last minute and then said, well, we decided we don't want to do that. What else do we want to do with something else?
Yeah, I can't say as I have or not, but I don't think we should be waiting until the last minute to make big decisions right now.
You've changed over $100,000 worth of grants that were used not as they were applied for. You did it with the flow meter, BOD meter out on
So
the
yes,
highway.
okay, yeah.
That one for 38,000 and change, and you spent what appears to be over $100,000 of the sewer fund that was earmarked for extending the sewer, and therefore, and not used for that purpose at all. So changing the use of the grant is possible.
So two wrongs don't make one right, in my opinion. And the fact that that was done improperly or was what was done. In this case, if we don't apply, if we don't do this, we should simply turn the money back.
I think we should have Scott look into the logistics of the grant.
Do you like to make a I assume my motion dies for lack of a second, so.
That's simply all I was gonna say for lack of a second. This was on the agenda as a discussion, not as a vote. We've got some directive for Scott to look into some stuff. I love your idea. And certain times of the year, if there's information, you can see the Orion's belt in August.
Look here.
Look here, yeah, look here. No, I love the idea. But this is not to be a
That
vote.
wouldn't be so cheap.
So, the
because it's
discussion I
very
think we
good.
had, I suggest we move on. And you had an appointment to go.
Yes, I'm leaving.
Irene, I wanna thank you
Thank
for the
you
work
for all
you
your-
put into this.
I agree.
I mean, I appreciate the work. I'm sorry that it's just a confusing time.
I'm going home and think about putting in my resignation.
Okay, as pro tem, I suggest we move on to item B, the letter to the Bristol Fire Department regarding the Halloween festivities.
You wanna go back and make a motion about the grant, or?
I don't think we need a motion. I think we can direct Scott to look into the logistics of it. Let us know what the timeline is and all of that. I guess I do wanna say even before you leave, and it's not directed at you, but we've been watching and listening to citizens attack Kyrena on social media and correspondence and all of that. And I, for one, completely support, somebody who's dedicated time to the community, wishing that they had a legacy. And I think that Kyrena does have a legacy of the dark skies, and I think it is really amazing for the community, and it's fucking awesome. And for somebody to want a sign for that, I don't think there's anything wrong with a person's
I agree
character,
with-
and I don't think it's
I agree with
an
you.
ego
It's just-
thing.
I agree.
Too much, too fast.
I
too
think it's
soon.
bad timing, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
and, you know, bad timing is, if we had to get this money spent 12 months ago.
Sure,
It should have had better planning.
yeah.
And we
I
should have seen more diagrams, we should have had, and yeah, bids. And one thing, we were throwing a picture and said, wow, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's when Leslie was here, and she said, you know, this is great for town staff. These-
But I just reiterate, I think it is a legacy, and I
Yeah.
think it's an amazing.
Well, I
legacy.
agree, and I didn't wanna break her heart,
Sure.
but, you know, we. Okay,
I hear you. All right.
but, thank you for coming anyway. Did you have any other comments? No, it's okay.
Interested in, I don't even live in Preston, I live in the.
Oh, that's kind of interesting though, small town politics,
Just,
but,
what's going on?
yeah, and I, you know, the book we all have. The ethics, liabilities, and best practices for elected officials. You know, just because an item you put on your personal agenda as you're running for council member does not always meet reality.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the dollar bill, and I even circled that, and this is we all have about 12 of these, I'm sure, at home. But, you know, sometimes what we want and what we need are two different things. That's kind of where I'm standing on that, and the total poll. If we want to spend $13,000, build me a fence, and you can paint dark skies all over it. And donate the fence to my property, you know, I mean, I'm being facetious, but, you know, that's a lot of money for a sign. So, all right, like I said earlier, let's go to item D. Letter from the Crestone Fire
So,
Department. I don't have that letter.
before we wrap up on the dark skies, I would like to see, and maybe Scott could look into the idea of just on the Crestone, welcome to Crestone sign, that we have another board that comes below and that just has an international dark sky community. And that way we have done the recognition, welcome to town. It's simple. If we wanna do something much bigger later on, that's fine. But we have the sign, we have the elevation, we have it, it's a pretty little thing, and that would be a nice spot that we could do it. It probably wouldn't cost, you know, a terrible amount of money, but it could be done to match the rest of the sign.
Yeah.
And I would ask Scott to look into what it might take to do something like that, and we can still use. We could still use part of that grant money, you don't have to turn it all back, we can maybe use part of it, maybe that would cost $400 for an artist to make it. And have that, but I think we should continue forward of having something with a sign. So, you know, I would like to make a motion that we have, Scott investigate what it would take to have an addendum to this, to our current town sign, stating that this is an international dark sky community and to get some ideas of how much that might cost to create that to our side. That's my motion.
I don't think we need a motion.
Or
But
what?
I don't think we need a motion for that, but
Okay, well then let's we're just gonna direct Scott to take a look at it.
Yep, and
Okay.
I took some notes, so I will,
Okay,
I will take a look at, I'm gonna research the grant and the timeline and whether it can put to different places in
I think it's
Denver.
two grants.
but please,
Two grants.
5,000.
Right, the impression that I got, from the mayor was that the COG grant is the one that she's most concerned about, the other one was a DOLA grant, and they have
Or
more.
Dola or county?
I believe the other one is DOLA.
I thought.
It's a little bit of a funny thing, while it was applied for through the town, it was applied for by the Dark Sky Committee through the town. So that's the reason I don't have a lot of background details on the timeline or anything like that, is
I
because.
never even saw it, and now it's part of the dark sky.
so I would request that it is in the minutes of today's special meeting, that you at least indicate that you were requested to research this information about adding to the sign. And if we so special minutes about going forward with any other the granting agencies, it does show that the town is pursuing its action.
Yep, so.
Please have that in the minutes.
I'll have that in the minutes. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. You wanna go ahead.
Any other comments about dark sky sign? Not at this point, maybe we could put that on the agenda for next month, further discussion or anything somebody's found out about something. The letter, I don't have that letter in front of me. But we apparently approved it, but I did read it over my phone. And
Yeah, I can give a little bit of context. This is the annual event that the fire department has been doing for years. It's a little bit of a legal gray area. This is what I was talking to Seth about. A couple reasons for it. Well, one is that they do the event on their property rather than on town property, so the form that we have for events is really a town property usage application. So obviously they don't need permission to have an event on their property. The things that don't line up with the code necessarily are that they typically have a bonfire, as well as live music. Now we don't really have we don't have a way to legally exempt them from that. With that said, our new code compliance officer isn't starting till first week of November, so it's actually kind of a moot point. That's why Seth said it's a legal gray area, because no, we don't have a way to say yes to it. We also don't have a way to enforce it at this time because of the timing between code enforcer. So his recommendation was that you guys can proceed how you want to here, but we should probably discuss including something in the code that allows for either special event noise permits and a fire exemption. Only time fire exemption would ever come up would be this one time, because we're not gonna let anyone with a fire department have a fire in town, but those are kind of the little issues.
okay, I have some comments, but Caitlin, you want to go?
Yeah, we have over the years granted exemptions on the fire. Like we have allowed fire spitting, we've allowed like at a winter solstice celebration where they had. The fire was in a contained metal container you know, rather than being like a pile on the ground, it was in a container. We have given exemptions to the fire department for having a bonfire. So we have done fire exemptions at various times. And, so that there's already precedent showing you know, like being at the fire department and they're always in charge, it's gonna be a very a big thing, so I would be willing to grant them the variance for, having their bonfire. We've done that in the past, we've done that for other groups.
My turn. The problems I have with this is, our code says 9 o'clock. And, you know, we can't keep going back and forth on the code or not the code or the code or not the code. It's Northern Saguache County Fire Protection property. They are responsible for security, they're responsible for everything. They've got that big hole now, so they're gonna have to barrier that thing so some drunk doesn't fall in there and break his neck. Okay, that's a safety issue. Which side, is it on their head or is it on the town's head? But I think that we need a barrier, a secured barrier, closing that area off. Somebody could drive in it at this point. And also, they have bathrooms up there, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, they need to address that issue. And the noise needs to cut off at 9 because that's what the code says. As far as the decibel, that's still so up in the air. I think we just need to follow our rules. Until we change our rules, I think we need to follow our rules. We can't keep going back and forth. It's okay for you, but it's not okay for you. So I made my piece. What is your thoughts, Dave?
Well, the fire thing I think is, I don't know if it's a variance or what it is, we can basically give our okay for that. I don't know how we did that before in the past.
I think that you just did it by emotion, and that's what I meant earlier on, that we don't really have like a authority for it. But
I think the rest is kind of their discretion, it's their land, it's not town land. I mean, if somebody falls in the hole, it's on them, it's not on us. I mean, maybe the fact that he wrote us a letter, now we're aware of it, or what do we?
Are we in bed with them? Is it kind of dual liability or?
I mean, if they get complaints,
You know, I agree that, you know, the things about the hole in the ground, whatever that's on their property, that creating a public event, that's their responsibility, and I think they're fairly aware guys that they would know to keep people away from it, and then fire department are always mindful of accidents or injuries, and I think that, you know, that's their property, and I think they're gonna do that. I would like to make a motion that we allow the Crestone Fire Department to have a bonfire during their Halloween celebration in October 31st, 2023.
now, I'd just like to add, I don't know if we can, but something about, that we recommend that they follow the town code. That would be just we recommend that they follow the town code, they can do it or not do it.
we're not doing the noise ordinance.
Yeah.
Did you say close at 9?
You know, I'm just addressing the issue of the fire. And so we could do one that says that we're approving their request to have a bonfire this night. And that's a standalone. And then secondly, it doesn't even have to be in the form of a motion. We can say we are not allowing variances or exemptions to our noise ordinance at this time. And so
And show them what the
music
noise
has to
ordinance
stop at 9.
is. What's can 3 people vote? If I abstain, does the vote still count?
Yeah, no, it's.
I have like 0 personal interest. But I'll abstain because sometimes I go on fire calls.
You're what?
Sometimes I go out on fire calls. So,
So I'll make the second her motion for the fire.
So my motion was just to allow them to have their bonfire during Halloween.
Motion made, motion seconded, all those in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
And then a second motion that states that we would recommend that they follow the town ordinances. If
And
they
I don't think that,
we don't have enforcement, but
And
I don't think that
I will
needs to
mention
be a
even
motion.
with a
maybe for
letter.
the follow-up letter regarding the safety, this is a picture of me after after a fire department dance. So 4 people ganged up on me, that's a picture of me after a fire department dance. Or actually during the dance. So, you know, I want security, they have to provide it.
I was there. I
know.
remember this shit. I remember that. Yeah, but so what I'm saying is, a motion to, we did a motion to approve the,
Okay.
allowing the have the bonfire.
Okay.
And then for the
that
other,
would
of it
carry.
is just a letter that says
Letter to,
that we do not have, you know, we don't have the ability to give a variance on our noise ordinance. That you have to follow the rules and
And
music
the
ends
code.
at 9 o'clock.
and here's a copy that states at 9 o'clock and the decibels have to be here or there. And you provide your own security and bathroom privies. Or just,
I think the less we do to try to govern how they manage it, the better. Like, let's stay out of bed with them.
okay, I'm glad you're not their neighbor. And I come over.
I mean, I imagine they'll go to the bar, cause the bar will be open too.
Okay, so
And also on that letter, could you please say that the town of Crestone greatly appreciates the work and service of our Crestone volunteer fire department? Very much so.
before we conclude with and this is not on the agenda, I was curious about this, flyer that I noticed about the acoustic circle happening every Saturdays at the museum. I was curious if they'd ever gotten permission or,
No, it's never come up, with me, but I don't know how long we've been doing it. We also haven't gotten any sort of notice complaints or anything about it.
okay, that's good. I'm just worried about liability purposes,
Oh,
since we're not aware of it.
mhm.
You know, anybody can play acoustic music wherever they want to, I imagine. But, this is the town museum and they're advertising it. So this tells me it's a kind of an event that we could go.
Museum's closed.
Well, yeah, it's been winterized,
Yeah.
so I don't know what's. the deal with that.
I will talk to Jim about it.
That's Bill Peck.
What's it? Bill Pack doing it?
Yeah.
Does he have any affiliation with the museum?
He has a few affiliations, but they're not at the museum in the town.
Gotcha, okay.
Warren,
Okay, is there any other
Okay,
discussion?
well, I'll
Anything?
clean out.
I move we adjourn.
second.
Motion made and seconded, it's 3:08. Meeting's adjourned.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Thank you all.
Yeah. Before we went there, we asked about, this thing.